Hello everyone, and today I'm here to discuss about our topic for today, which is the technology and risky behaviors. And from within this topic, we will discuss the kinds of risky behaviors, the effects of risky behaviors, and how can we reduce these behaviors altogether. So first, let us talk about the definition of risky behaviors. According to the current opinion of Psychology 2017, it can be stated that can be defined then as one purpose participation in some form of behavior that involves potential negative consequences or losses, as well as perceived positive consequences or gains. Which, based on the statement itself, it is our own behavior that involves or partakes through these potential consequences that can be positive or negative that gain from it. These consequences are the results of our own behavior that are rooted by either through the experience of other people or through the use of technology. For now, within this topic, we will only focus on the technology use of that affects these kinds of behaviors. There are 8 kinds of risky behaviors based on the readings that I learned. And these are absenteeism, alcohol use, unsafe driving, cheating, smoking, restrained stunts or sports, obesity, and vandalism. The reason that we have these behaviors is through the use of technology itself. And through technology, we are influenced by our actions and our daily activities that use technology to develop these behaviors. To generalize, these actions, for example, are listening to radio and news, watching videos, movies, or television, visiting websites, looking at advertised online posters, messages and online emails, and the technology is what they develop these behaviors that people possess with or without knowing that these behaviors are what already make us do things we do or do not. These kinds of behaviors are the result that either brings positive or negative consequences that are the result of these behaviors. To understand these consequences, here I have a table of the 7 dimensions of man that related to the effects of the risky behaviors that we had talked about, or rather, these are the kinds of risky behavior that affected these 7 dimensions of man. So let's start with the physical dimension, which we have the physical injury, poor health conditions, and low immune system. These are the effects because there's a chance that a person is sick or hurt, especially if they do not take care of themselves. Intellectual dimension, which is the manipulation of learning and knowledge and misinformation. These can be affected, especially the children or younger people, if they do not guided or aware of these behaviors, especially smoking and alcohol use. Moral dimension, which we have the lack of discipline, distrust of others, and dishonesty. Because people aren't able to control their temptations, their emotions, and the influence of others, especially if a person is lying, because these people do not want to admit the consequences or the mistakes they made. Next one is the spiritual dimension, which is the lack of inner peace. Because we are able to keep calm and control our behavior, making it that burning feeling in our spirits, which is imbalance. Next is the social dimension, which is the first is the corruption of family values and relationship. If you watch the Netflix film, if you saw the girl how break the container that locks the item they're not able to get until the timer ends, then she proceed to break the container and then leaves it. It's an example of the effect example of the effect because the members of the family aren't able to communicate and the value of their time as a family, which the mother wants to talk with them. Conflict and violence is also part of the social dimension as an effect because just like Netflix also examples the people of the United States attacked the White House after the elections. That's the best example, as well as they also vandalized places that especially that riots and rallies are present in every nation around the world. The next dimension is economic, which is first is the increase of underemployment rate. There's we should address the another kind of behavior, which is the tolerancy or absenteeism, where people say that there's a high risk of tendency where many individuals do not show up because there are many possibilities of negative consequences they receive or such. damaging property or environment. Just like vandalism, they also pose damaging things that affect many different places. And lastly, in the political dimension, we have the damaging cultural and national identity. Because these behaviors are not defined our national and cultural identity and therefore should be treated as not part of it. Rather, we need to learn to respect and honor of our country and other places we need to respect and from ourselves. Therefore, we should be what is to be a fellow, what is to be a country itself, what is to be who we are. Now that we identify the effects, how can we reduce these risky behaviors? So let's establish our own ground rules. Because these kinds of behavior we have aren't always going to fade away, and provide thriving and creating rules is important because it is not just to prevent any possible consequences, but it allows our own risky behaviors to be regulated at all costs. Then next is to learn to control yourself. It's also important to also control your emotions, temptations, and even other influences that can be affected by your behavior. We should always keep cool and learn the things that we need to be aware of. Next is positive interactive with your close relationship, especially if it's your parents, because these are the people like that you can only trust and what you need to know these kinds of behaviors, as well as the awareness of it. Next one is the finding a safe environment. Looking at a place that is safe is important, especially in using different online environments or platforms that are not safe for you to use or learn from it. Therefore, we should always find a reliable online environment without any negative consequences that affect our behavior. And lastly, is to find new learning opportunities. Our risky behavior is not always full of negative kinds of behaviors. Rather, there are ways to use the risky behaviors to motivate ourselves and to engage in learning things and develop values, skills, and knowledge, and so on. So, my realization and implication about this topic are in four things words I provide here, which are first is the responsibility, second is self-control, and third, self-aware, and fourth, always take chances and not to abuse it. Responsibility, because it is our responsibility ourselves to control, to learn these behaviors, as well as what we can do for these behaviors to reduce it. Next is to self-control. It's important that our emotions and our temptations must be controlled at all costs. We have to know that the consequences are not just any consequences, but we need to look forward, especially, which is the third, is self-aware. We need to be aware that these positive and negative consequences will either benefit us or not, because it's important to get important as a person that you need to know these consequences. And lastly, always take chances and not to abuse it. Just like what I said previously, that finding new learning opportunities, our risky behavior is not always full of negative things. Yes, it is full of negative things. It has the kinds of behaviors I have is full of negative, but that doesn't mean it is negative at all, which is the risky behavior itself. Rather, the risky behaviors allowed us to motivate and to engage new learning that would allow us to keep these values, skills, and knowledge, and so on. So rather, you always have to take chances and not to abuse it. That is all for today. Thank you very much, and I hope that you all listen to well. Thank you.